Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. Hope you're enjoying your Sunday. Joining me today in the co-captain's chair, Mr. Armando Venditti. What's happening, Armando?
Doing good. Doing good
Yeah,
for Sunday morning.
glad to hear it. Yes, indeedy. Sunday morning. It's early, bright and early. Sun is shining here today in the U.S. of A. Hope it's doing the same up in Canada.
No way in hell.
No, okay, well,
Cloudy as hell.
cloudy. All right. Well, if you get any rain, Armando, send it down my way because man, we are dry as a bone here.
We are in the middle of a heat wave. We're like 31 degrees by like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's like,
Oh, that's pretty hot. Yeah, that's pretty hot.
yeah, 31 Celsius. So it's
Yeah.
like, thank God for central air.
There you
But
go. Same here. Same here.
we're good. We're good.
So we're ranking a catalog today of a band that we've actually been talking about doing for a long time here on the channel. I'm actually surprised in the 2+ years we've been doing ranking the album shows that we haven't gotten to Jefferson Starship by now. But as I always say, there's no time like the present. Better late than never. And so Armando and I have decided. They've got 11 albums. So this is a band that's been around since 1974. The problem with this catalog is that the latter part of the catalog is really kind of dicey. You know, you've got like all sorts of different members. Is it really Jefferson Starship? Then there's this whole Starship thing. So what we decided to do is we're really going to just look at the albums from like 74 to like the 90s. And instead of just ranking them all, we're just going to do our top 5 and 2 honorable mentions, which should give you a really good perspective of this catalog anyway. So what we'll do is we'll start off with our number 5 each. We'll work our way back to number 1, then we'll each give you our honorable mentions and talk a little bit about those. And again, for those of you who aren't aware, Jefferson Starship is the band that formed out of the ashes of the Jefferson Airplane. So you had various members of the airplane who came over to the Jefferson Starship, formed this band. So, you know, you got Paul Kantner, Grace Slick, Marty Ballin occasionally, Papa John Creech, Mr. Freeberg. I mean, all these other folks who basically just changed the name and changed the style a little bit. Whereas the Jefferson Airplane were a true 60s band, kind of psychedelic rock.
More psychedelic, yeah.
Yeah, really psychedelic. The Starship initially on had a little bit of that psychedelia, but more of like an adventurous rock band. And they were really good at writing pop songs. And then as the 70s wore on, became just a really good hard rock band, like a melodic hard rock band. And then much more of a pop band into the 80s as well. So I'll have Armando. I almost did it again, Armando. I'm like trying to combine both of your first and last name. I think that's what's screwing me up. Armando is going to kick us off with his number 5 for today.
And I've been called a lot worse, Pete. Do not worry about it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are we today? We're doing wonderful here. Okay. Number 5 for me. And I've also written down the chart positions for these albums, the maximum chart positions. And before we started taping, folks, I said to Pete, when I had to rewrite this list in proper chicken scratch, I re-ranked them. So here we go. Number 5 for me is from 74, Dragonfly. And all these albums were released on the Grunt/RCA label. Dragonfly comes in for me at number 5. Has the tracks Ride the Tiger, Caroline, All Fly Away for me, and Hyperdrive were the songs that really stood out. And for me, it kind of carries over from the kind of like the psychedelic stuff that they were doing in the 60s. And it's got to be said, the guitarist from this group, Craig Chiquico, I think
I think it's pronounced Chiquiso, I think. Because I called him Chiquico for my entire life. And then Lynn Versace and I did like a top 10 songs of the Starship like a year or 2 ago. And we both were saying Chiquico. And I had all sorts of people in the comments saying, no, it's Chiquiso. So I guess it's Chiquiso.
Before I get lambasted in the comments.
We'll just call him Craig. We'll just call or CC.
Okay.
Right?
CC.
There you go.
Not to be confused with CC DeVille.
There you go. No, not at all. No,
not at all.
Craig is a great
it's got to be said, he is a fantastic guitarist.
Yeah, he is.
He's got a tremendous tone on all of these albums. But the 70s were sort of like where he he shined for
Yeah.
me in terms of his playing and his
Pretty young
attack.
too at the time, if I remember correctly. I mean, 74. I don't, was he even 20 years old at the time? I don't even know. I'll have to
I'm
double.
not even sure. No, I'm not sure, but I'm just his attack and
He
his
was
his
20 years
approach.
old. He was 20,
He
20 years
was
old.
full of piss and vinegar, I guess you call it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I this album, again, it harks back to the psychedelic era for
Yeah.
me, and just really good, memorable, melodic songs, and yeah, that's my number 5.
Cool. More on that later. I will echo what Armando said. This is a really hard catalog to rank, especially like a top 5, because the majority of their earlier albums, I shouldn't say the majority, all of them are really, really strong and almost equally so. So, like Armando, I redid my ranking numerous times. And then finally, I was just like, you know what? I can't jig this anymore. The top 5,
Fuck
they're all really
it. Yeah.
they're all really good. So coming in number 5 for me was higher. Then I put it lower. I almost moved it again. From 1982, Winds of Change. Terrific album. This is their 7th album overall. First with Grace Slick back on vocals full time. She appeared on Modern Times, the previous album, as well, but she just kind of like showed up in the studio and laid down some backing vocals.
Yeah, I was late in the recording, and
Yeah, late
she
on.
did
So,
one.
but here she was already back full time in the band. So here she is singing alongside the great Mickey Thomas. And she makes her statement right off the bat on the alluring mystical title track, which I absolutely love. I think Winds of Change is one of their greatest songs. Really, really good. Mr. Chiquiso adding some fine guitar playing on this entire album. Keep on Dreaming, crisp melodic hard rocker with a great Mickey vocal. Be My Lady, another strong rock song. The ballad I Will Stay is sensational. Again, Mickey Thomas, what a great singer. Really, really good. Grace is all sorts of maniacal and raging on the kind of new wavy, out of control. It's kind of punky, kind of new wave, post-punk type of thing. She's at her like frenzied best. It reminds me of the old Airplane stuff. Can't Find Love, big hook licking hard rocker. I'm surprised that Can't Find Love wasn't a big hit. That's an amazing song. Again, going back to like what Martin Popoff and I were talking about just the other day, it's like sometimes some of the best songs are not the hits. And I don't know why the record company execs didn't make Can't Find Love a big single, because it's a terrific, terrific song.
Yeah. And as I put in the comments, I think the record company's job is to sort of pick the songs that they think that are going to best represent the album.
Yeah.
At the time. And sometimes it's a miss.
Yeah. This would have been a perfect hit, because I mean it's 82. This type of stuff is really popular, but whatever. People can still go rediscover it now. That's the joy of music, right? So what else we got? Black Widow is great. Kantner sings on I Came Back from the Jaws of the Dragon, which has a wild CC solo, and Paul Kantner sings lead on that one. Quit Wasting Time closes out the album. Good hard rock in fashion. It's a really good hard rock album from the early 80s. Hooks everywhere, melodies everywhere. And man, Mickey Thomas and Grace Slick, what a vocal pairing. As much as I love Marty Balin and Grace on the early stuff, I think Mickey and Grace are a perfect team on the latter stuff. So number 5 for me, Winds of Change. Could be higher, but I got to put them somewhere. So back to you for number 4.
Number 4 for me is, if I can read again my own chicken scratch here, from 76, Spitfire. There we go. Pete is wonderful with the props.
I got all the props today, Armando. I will not disappoint.
And all props to Pete right now. So he's it came out 76. The songs that really stand out for me are Cruising, Hot Water, which I believe it's Grace Slick on lead vocals, and great bass intro for me from his name is Pete Sears, the bass player, and the two-parter song to the Sun. It starts out with the great instrumental, and just leads into the rest of the track. I forgot to, for number 5, A chart position in Australia, it charted at number 60 for Dragonfly. For Spitfire, it was a US number 3 album.
It's a big seller here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Despite
yeah,
the fact
that's
of not having a big hit song, it was a good seller.
yeah, yeah. I was surprised when I was looking at, like, again, all the information provided to you today by me, ladies and gentlemen, is courtesy of wikipedia.com. Just to get that out of the way. But yeah, I was surprised that in Australia they really didn't chart that high. Like top 60, top 50s, like 80s, some of them, like, but the US, they were like top 3, top 10, for these albums.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
think, well,
that's
this
my number.
album I think benefited from Red Octopus, which came before, which was a big seller here too, and that
Yeah.
had had a big hit single on it, which helped drive the sales of the album. So I think that Spitfire kind of took advantage of that, even though this didn't have any real singles like their prior two albums. But
Yeah.
I think well, I'll talk about it a bit more in a little bit. But I think a very strong album, Spitfire. How do you like the production on this album?
But very good. Just
Yeah, I
very
think
clear.
Spitfire is their best selling album.
Yeah, just a very clear production wise. I mean, there are some albums like from that time frame that are just very muddy, just very like muddy and like, I guess, fuzzy. That's not even a word. Just very murky. Murky. That's a bit. Sorry, guys. One
Murky.
sip of coffee today, and I'm screwed up still. I gotta wake up. Okay, so I need help. No, anyway, but yeah, it's a very murky sounding. Some of the productions can be very murky sounding on these albums, but this album, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And very dreamy, like vocals on the background vocals. Very sort of, they do the group vocals, the group vocal style very well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it helps. You got three of them, and well, more of them actually.
Yeah.
You got Grace and Marty doing the bulk of the vocals, but you got Paul sings vocals as well. They all sing backing vocals. I think the rest of the band all participate in backing vocals. So yeah, you just kind of have this constant, like, backing vocal swirl, like you mentioned, that's just
Yeah.
going throughout the whole album on all these albums. I love, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I love bands where they have multiple singers in the band and then everybody sings backing vocals, because it just adds so much richness to the music. And that's one of my favorite things about this band.
And some may say that it's a little overplayed in terms of that kind of vocal style, but you know what? Also,
It's a trademark. Yeah.
Yeah, it works.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's my number 4.
Cool. All right. My number 4 made its way up and down my ranking multiple times, and I almost feel bad putting it here because it has one of my favorite songs from the band on it. But I'm going to go from 1975, the second album, Red Octopus. And again, just so you have an idea of how many people were actually in this band, right? It's like,
Oh my God.
I know, right? So again, the second album, big seller for them. Marty Balin is now in the band full time. So he guested on the first album. Here he's in the band full time. So this is almost like a Jefferson Airplane Part 2 in a weird way, but the music is a little different. You got Fast Buck Freddy, fun, bluesy, kind of country rock song. Again, the first two albums hint at a lot of what they were doing in the Airplane. Then you got Miracles, which is written by Marty Balin, one of the best pop songs of the 70s. I mean, kind of an outlier because it's not really what they were doing at the time.
Yeah, an AM staple. An AM staple.
What
AM
a great
staple.
song. And it's, we talk a lot about songs you kind of overhear and you kind of get sick of. I mean, I've heard Miracles a million times in my life. I never get sick of this song. There's something about the dreamy nature of it and the lead and backing vocals, just so good. I mean, it's just, again, it's not really representative of what the Starship are all about, but it's just a great song. I mean, it's just the electric piano, the vocals, it's just so good. Otherwise on here, you got Get Fiddler, funky, another country rock type of thing. They had Papa John is in the band on fiddle or violin, whatever you want to call it. He adds like a unique flavor, I think, to these early albums.
Yeah.
John Creech. You got Sweeter Than Honey is a big hard rocker, which kind of sounds like the early Doobie Brothers to me. I kind of get that same feel.
Mm-hmm.
Play on Love, you got Grace just belting it out on that. Marty, again, doing that kind of dreamy, like romantic vocal style on Tumblin'. I Want to See End of the World is another good hard rocker. Sandalphon, a great instrumental. I mean, these guys had really good musical skills. I mean, this one's kind of like proggy, lots of keyboards from Pete Sears and David Freiberg. Great stuff. And then you got There Will Be Love, which reminds me of the early Airplane days. It's kind of psychedelic. Really strong album. I feel bad putting it at number 4, but like I said, I think all of my top 5 are tremendous albums. So the order could change any day. So number 4, Red Octopus. Back to you for
Yeah,
number 3.
I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of Marty Ballard's vocal delivery, in terms of the whole production of that one track. And again, for Miracles, I remember hearing on AM radio, back in the day, like I was what, 5, for God's sake, and I still remember hearing it back then.
Yeah.
I'm an old soul, guys, but I mean, it's just
and I don't know about you, but I always hated the radio edit, because like I grew up hearing the whole song, and then they trim like 2 minutes off of it on like a shorter edit. And I remember anytime I hear that, I'm like, no, that's missing a good chunk of it. I want to hear the whole full 7-minute long version of it.
If there are any radio people out there listening, you screwed up.
Yeah.
Leave the entire track. I've said this before. It's like when you hear More Than a Feeling from Boston, you remove the second verse out of the bloody song, right, on the radio edit, leave it in.
Yeah, don't touch that. Don't touch Bohemian Rhapsody. Don't touch Hotel California. They don't. I mean, granted, some people might be sick of these songs, but it's like, if you're going to hear it, you got to hear it in its entirety, right?
I've heard them play, like, a little off target here, but I've heard them play Bat Out of Hell from top to bottom, and then they're going to touch this. No. I don't believe that. Like, it's disgusting. Don't do that. It's wrong.
Leave Miracles
alone.
It's
just wrong.
Miracles is a miracle as is, full length.
Yeah.
Don't chop any part of it off.
Exactly. Moving on. My number 3 was an honorable mention at first, but in hearing it and rewriting the list, I thought, no, this belongs in this list, and it's Earth from '78. Good, a great album. Again, it was like number 68 in Australia. For some reason, it didn't, as Pete drops, it didn't chart well in Australia, which, again, it's a miracle as to why it didn't. You have songs like Count on Me, that stand out for me. Count on Me, Love Too Good, and Runaway. Again, that dreamy vocal in the background.
Count on Me is a great song. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But with Runaway, you have that dreamy background, the background vocals like on the chorus, and it just sort of, like, to me, kind of like washes over you.
Yeah.
Like, when it just comes out of the speakers, it's like, oh, okay. You just sit back. If I'm in the car with Bob, obviously he's driving, so I can relax and do whatever, but I can just put my head back and just listen to it, and it just takes me away, like it just on a trip. So that's my number 3. And again, the guitar work on all these albums from CC, I'm gonna stay out of trouble here, is top notch. There's no way around it.
Craig's the real deal. I don't know if you ever heard any of his, like, kind of jazzy solo stuff that he did after the Starship days. Pretty good. He's a really good player.
Okay, I'm gonna message you about that later.
Yeah.
Send me a list. So that's what we do, ladies and gentlemen. We help each other out on this channel. We try.
Everybody gets new stuff after every show. Everybody gets new stuff to listen to. That's the way it goes. Like yeah. I don't have enough, but yeah, I would. Some days I sit here and I'm like, at my desk, and I'm looking around me, and I'm like, I must have about 150 CDs sitting on my desk in various piles, all in front of me. Yeah, I kid you not. And it keeps growing. I'm like, oh man, am I ever going to get through all this stuff? I don't know. Never.
I know.
That's my destiny, I guess. All right, my number 3 is also from 1976, the third album, Spitfire, and I love that cover. How cool is that, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a perfect example of an album that has no hits, but it's damn great, and it doesn't need any. You mentioned the song Cruisin'. this cool, like kind of funky rocker, reminds me of Steely Dan a little bit. You got Dance with the Dragon, just classy hard rock, and I love having the three of them singing together on that song. You got Marty, you got Paul Kantner, you got Grace
Yeah.
Slick, all of them together. Love it. Hot Water, another funky hard rock song, great
Yeah.
arrangement on it. St. Charles, absolute magical song, kind of proggy. You got the soaring vocals of Marty and Grace. I love the production of this album. I just absolutely, I listened to this album and I'm thinking, man, this is one of the great sounding albums of the 70s. Just totally, totally love it. You got a great Craig Chiquiso solo on that one. And then you mentioned Song to the Sun Part 1 and Part 2. Man, big adventurous piece. Kind of reminds me, I've been listening to a lot of Grateful Dead lately. It reminds me of like Blues for Allah era Grateful Dead. It's got that kind of
Okay.
like jammy, psychedelic, rootsy, kind of proggy thing going to it. Absolutely love it. And then you got With Your Love, which is basically Miracles Part 2, another Marty Balin song. With Your Love is really good as well. It's not quite as good as Miracles, but really good song. And then you got Switchblade. Great, Grace is great on that. Big City, big kind of bluesy rock song. And then Love, Lovely Love, which to me kind of has this weird Santana Latin rock feel with a little
You're
bit of
right,
disco, with a
actually.
little
Yeah.
disco, right? It's like kind of
Yeah.
weird, but it works. I don't know. I like this
I
album a
was,
lot. I think the vocals are great on here.
yeah.
I love the production. Again, no real hits other than With Your Love, but that was a minor hit. But the rest of the album is just obscure, deep tracks, and they all rule. I really like Spitfire a lot. So
Yeah.
that's number 3.
Yeah. No, what more can be said? And by the way, you and I are going to talk about a Grateful Dead list that I can get into, and
Oh,
if
yeah.
it's okay with you.
Yep.
This guy is full of information and inspiration, people. I'm
Try.
telling you, son,
I
right
try.
now, it's hilarious. Okay. My number 2 is from 79. Uh Freedom at Point Zero. Yes, and it again, Australian chart number 75 on this album, featuring Mickey Thomas on vocals. This is where they started to go for a more AOR sound, like more rock, straight rock AOR sound. I can't even say AOR. Like I'm screwed up with that, tongue tied.
AOR.
Yeah, but the tracks that stand out for me are obviously Jane, which, I mean, come on. I mean, that's Mickey Thomas firing on all cylinders. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
just like vocally, just, pardon my language, fucking out of the gate.
Oh, he's
Boom,
tremendous on this album. Tremendous. You look
over
up
the top.
Anthem in the dictionary, and Anthem equals Jane by Jefferson
Over the
Starship.
top, over the top. I'm telling you.
Killer.
And I mean, it went like what? It charted at, peaked at number 14 on the singles chart. So I mean, yeah, this is what they needed to keep them going,
Yeah.
right? To
Great
make the
hard rock song.
transition.
Yeah. Great hard.
Bloody hell. I mean,
Yeah.
and you've got the track Awakenings, which to me is more heavy rock / experimental.
Yeah.
To me, like very experimental. You've also got the title track to the album, which I won't repeat because it's the title track. But yeah, I mean, it's a great album. I again was wondering, where am I going to place this? This was going to be in my list when you mentioned doing this show. I thought, okay, that album, it's got to be in the list for me, and yeah, it's number 2 for me.
Cool.
Nothing more can be said, really. So
My number 2 is Dragonfly. Debut album, 1994. Yeah, again, it was lower on my list. It was higher on my list. It was lower. This one kind of swam up and down, the whole salmon thing, up and downstream. A good chunk of the Airplane crew, the latter lineup is here. I mean, come on, Ride the Tiger. What a great song. One of the best songs from this band. Such a great hard rock song. And again, that signals from this very debut album, that signals that this is kind of a different band, right? Because the Airplane would have never done something like Ride the Tiger. Good hard charging rocker. Paul and Grace sharing lead vocals. I always thought it was interesting too that on the cover you have Grace and Paul on either side of Jefferson Starship. Their names are on the cover. I think they did that to draw in sales because they wanted that carryover from the airplane. Because, even though it's Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship, I figured, my guess is they wanted to make sure they grabbed that crowd as well. And why not put the two, kind of leaders of the band on there? So yeah, really good.
They wanted to hold on to the fan base, and they
Yeah,
wanted
you had
not
to,
cut you
right?
off. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They wanted to hold on to the fan base, and they wanted the crossover appeal, and
Yep.
that was the way they did it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
Papa John Creech's violin and Craig's stinging guitar solo, man, great stuff. That's for sure is kind of airplane-ish. It's kind of like this fun psychedelic pop song.
yeah.
Be Young You is another kind of weird kind of pop song with a great slick vocal, really good violin. You got Marty Balin that shows up on one song. He would join full time after this album, but he shows up for one song on The Haunting Caroline. So again, his songs in this band really, when you think about it, are more of the pop songs. So he had Caroline,
Yeah,
Miracles, and the With Your Love. So those are really his three big tracks with this band. But the Caroline also should have been a really big hit, and it really wasn't. So it's
yeah,
interesting how some of these songs that we're talking about now that we're shocked that weren't big hits, really weren't.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah. Devil's Den is a cool, like quirky psychedelic rock song. I love the like kind of really smooth, funky wah wah guitars from Chiquiso on All Fly Away, which is a great atmospheric song. And then you got the big long hyperdrive closer, which again has kind of like prog elements, a little jammy, a lot of tasty keyboards and guitar solos. Grace with a great majestic vocal. I don't know. This is a terrific album. I love it. Great start. A little different though. It's interesting how this band kind of changed up a little bit from album to album throughout the 70s, but I love it. And man, that cover is just so cool. So
yeah. I
number
think
two.
that's a good pick. I think that again, that album, it was still, even though it was my number 4, they still had influences from the 60s slowly coming in,
Yep.
going into the 70s.
Yep.
Great album. I'm going for my number 1, are we? Yeah. Red Octopus. Number 1.
I had a feeling you were going to choose it, so I had it queued up. Armando and I do not. We didn't share our list, but I had a feeling.
No.
I had a feeling.
He can read me like a book, ladies and gentlemen. He knows me so well. Watch the Prince episode, ranking episode. You know what I'm talking about. But
I'm a good listener, Armando, so I can
I know,
tell
I know.
where people are going to go. That's what
I know. No, I mean, Red Octopus. It was a U.S. number 1, and it was a U.S. number 1 for a reason. I mean, with the single of Miracles. I mean, edit notwithstanding, on it. That made, there are certain albums where you get 1 or 2 songs, and the rest of the albums are kind of the album is kind of like filler. But those 1 or 2 songs carry the album for you. Well, this is not the case for me. Well, I mean, there's a couple of songs, a few other songs that stand out. Like you have Miracles. I mean, nothing more can be said. You have Get Fiddlin', which is a little quirky. I say quirky instrumental. Another instrumental, Sandophone, which is fantastic. Tumblin', which is another great track. Yeah, I mean, it is a great album. And like I said, I mean, I remember hearing Miracles. I was like, what, 5? I mean, growing up with 3 older sisters, ladies and gentlemen, it has its advantages in terms of listening to music, because that's all you would hear in the house, right? That and American Bandstand on TV. So, I mean, yeah, and it's still in my head. I remember listening to this as a kid. Radio was on wherever I was in the house, and it would just sort of waffle through the house, like you would hear it in the air, kind of thing. So yeah, that's my number 1, and I'll stick by that.
My guess is we're going to see a lot of people picking that in the comments as well. Is my guess. That generally seems to be like the most popular Jefferson Starship album. But maybe we'll be surprised. I don't know. But like I said, you can make a case for any of these because they're
Yeah.
really, really good. And as Armando and I said, we've changed our list multiple times. That's how strong these albums are.
Yeah.
My number one from 1979, the fifth album, Freedom at Point Zero. This was kind of a no-brainer for me. I love this album. And I'm going to echo a lot of what you said. Jane, fucking great. I mean, I love that riff.
Fucking great.
I love the piano. Mickey Thomas, man, is he good on here. Holy shit. He's like one of those guys that like nobody ever talks about, but
Yeah.
what a powerhouse singer maybe he still is, I don't know, but was back in the day here. I mean, this just amazing. He could sing the hard rockers, he could sing the ballads. Man, that voice just like soar into the heavens. I love Jane. Since the first time I heard it on FM rock radio, man, Jane is so good. I love Craig's guitar work on it. Killer song. Lightning Rose, another really good song. Reminds me of the more poppy Jefferson Airplane stuff. Really good Paul Kantner vocal. Things to Come, another good hard rocker. You got the kind of lengthy, moody, almost proggy Awakenings, which has great piano from Pete Sears, great vocal from Mickey, great killer guitar solo from Chiquiso. Girl with the Hungry Eyes, catchy, fun rock song. Another great guitar solo from Chiquiso. Just the Same, another great rocker, another great vocal. And my second favorite song on the album, Rock Music. I mean, they used to play that on the local rock station here in Poughkeepsie a lot back when this album first came out. It wasn't, I don't know if it was released as a single, but it got a lot.
It was, but it didn't chart as high as
it didn't chart, right? Yeah, but man, I mean, that's again, anthem. Rock and roll is good time music. Listen to it. I mean, it's so like you just want to pump your fist into the air. Absolutely love it. Fading Lady Light, another good pop ballad on the album, and then I absolutely love the title track, which is just this kind of darker, snarling hard rocker with big riffs, lots of solos from CC. I dig this album. It's a great sounding album. This is one of the great late 70s hard rock albums. I mean, AOR is probably melodic rock, melodic hard rock, AOR, whatever you want to call it. One memorable song after another, expertly played, great production. I love this album. So good. So good. So that's my number one.
That's a fantastic choice. And also, just a little side note for those out there watching, go on YouTube, wherever you can, and look up Alvin Bishop's Fool Around and Fell in Love. That's Mickey Thomas on background vocals. All right. So I'm telling you, with Jane, when he came out of the gate with Jane, he didn't just come out of the gate, he blew the gate open, he exploded the gate, and it was just going on from there. You couldn't stop him. Just white hot.
Actually, I think he sings the whole song. I'm pretty sure that's him on lead on all the vocals on that song.
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah,
and I mean, and he could double track his vocals and come across as like with really rich, thick harmonies. Amazingly, he could a talent beyond compare for me. Anyways, I'm stumbling with my words, ladies and gentlemen.
While Armando's getting ready for to list his honorable mentions, I do want to let you know that there's this very cool little box set, the original album classics, that has those first 5 albums on it.
Cool.
You can get this for cheap. Dynamite little collection. I got this a couple of years ago. Great.
Okay,
great
I get paid next week. Here I come. Okay, honorable mentions time. My first one is in order. Nuclear Furniture from '84.
I didn't pull out, but that's a good one. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
With songs like Laying It on the Line, No Way Out, Magician. To me, this was the band going right at this point, they were in an AOR radio friendly, the format. Let's listen to the A&R guy from RCA.
The MTV years. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think I was reading that this was the last album with Paul Kantner, and he at one point stole the tapes during recording when they were going to mix it. When they had recorded the album, he stole the tapes, put them in his car, and was driving around LA because he was freaking out, because he was upset because he didn't like the way the album was going. And he wasn't going to return the tapes to the studio until they agreed to mix the album the way he wanted it mixed.
Uh,
And I do read Wikipedia, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know who won that argument, but I think it's a fine sounding album. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where he was coming from.
I don't know.
Or what he was on.
To me, Late on the Line was kind of like the younger sibling to Jane. I always like that kind of style.
Very melodic, very in your face.
Too. Yeah, it's rocking, great keyboards.
Yeah. And I don't know where he was coming from. But yeah, it charted at 28 in the US on the album chart. And okay, you want my last one, or do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, give them both.
Okay. My last one for my honorable mentions is Modern Times. If you look at the cover, do you have it there?
Yeah.
Who the hell is that on the cover?
I don't know. And I just realized that this is a twofer, so I do have Nuclear Furniture as well.
Okay.
They're both on it. Right? I totally forgot. I was like, oh, I didn't grab that one. Yes, I did.
Okay.
I forgot that they were
the wonders of doing YouTube, folks. It's wonderful.
See that? But this is a weird.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, who the hell is that on the cover? If anyone knows, can you put in the comments who the hell that is?
I don't know.
Because I wouldn't go near her with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't touch her. I'm sorry.
It's kind of a strange album cover. Yeah.
She just scares me. I'm sorry. This is where they started again. They started to go into the more AOR friendly territory. And again, this is where RCA thought, you know what? We've got them where we need them or where we want them. Let's keep them in this format. We'll get a hit. Songs like Find Your Way Back is good. Strangers is another good track. Stairway to Cleveland it closes the album, and there's a subtitle called "We Do What We Want" on that track, and it closes out the album. And in chart positions, US it was 26, Australia it was 84. So, I mean, they never really in Australia, they weren't really that big in Australia in terms of a fan base. But yeah, it's okay. It's not, for me, it's not. I mean, it kind of took a step down from Freedom at Point Zero for me, but it's not right album. Like, I like Find Your Way Back. I like Strangers, so it was all right. So yeah, those are my two honorable mentions.
My two, Earth from '78. Other than Count on Me, not an album full with hits, but still fun, enjoyable album. Lots of variety on here. Skateboard is great. Fire is a great song. Crazy Feeling, All Night Long, Love Too Good, Runaway, all really strong songs. I think it's a very, very enjoyable album. This probably would be number 6 for me, I think, on this list. So I like Earth quite a bit. And then I'm also going to go with Modern Times from '81. I like it. I mean, you're right. It's not quite as strong as Winds of Change or Freedom at Point Zero for me. But ironically, I like Winds of Change, which came after it, a bit better. But I think Modern Times is good. Find Your Way Back, great song. Strangers, great. Mary, Free, all really good songs. It sounds good. Yeah, it's a little poppier. It's a little more, well, I don't even know poppy's the word. It's more kind of like, that whole melodic AOR rock type.
AOR, yeah.
Yeah, they're really going for like a slicker sound. But, it is the 80s. That's what that was all about. But I like Winds of Change a little bit better, but I still think it's a really terrific album, as are all of these here. I would say everything up to Nuclear Furniture in '84 are excellent to pretty damn solid. It's the stuff that came after that's kind of like, and then the Starship stuff is, because what they did was, you have later albums that don't have Grace anymore, may or may not have Paul, may or may not have Mickey or anybody or hardly anybody else, and it just got to the point where it's like, all right, is this really Jefferson Starship anymore? Which you can say about a lot of other bands, but my problem, I think, with some of the latter stuff is that it just doesn't even sound like the same band anymore.
No, and we were talking before we started taping about I think it's Window to Heaven from '98. I'm listening to that album and I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm like, it's like, it's almost like, okay, that song, come on everyone, people get together, try and love one another right now, like that
Yeah.
one track. They're taking that sentiment, but they're also saying, and if you don't, well, fuck you. I mean, like, like they're like screaming into the mic. If you don't like what we're saying, well, then screw you and move on. And it's like, I couldn't take it. I started to listen to it and I couldn't even use it couldn't even put in a ranking. I'm like, okay, this is not, there's no redeeming quality on this.
Yeah,
On this
I mean,
record.
the important thing here today is I think that for those who have never
Yeah.
listened to this band before, we've basically given you the albums you need to go focus on.
Yeah.
If you find you've gotten all these and you like all these and you want to be a completist and you want to get the last couple that came much later on, go for it. But if you really just want the best Jefferson Starship albums, we each gave you five, we each gave you seven that you should go, and we basically, for the most part, picked all the ones. So, and anything from Nuclear Furniture in '84 all the way back to that first album in '74, that whole period there, those are the ones that are the best in our opinion, right? Those are the ones you should be concentrating on. And as for which ones you may find as your favorite amongst these seven, who knows? They're all really good. So, if you want to start anywhere, start at both of our number ones or twos and work your way back. But man, you can, any of these ones we mentioned today, you can pick and they'll be good. They're all a little different from each other. Just remember that the early stuff is a little more kind of a bleeding over from the Airplane psychedelic pop rock era. And then incorporating other things like maybe prog and stuff like that. And then once the '70s started to wear down, they became more of like a melodic hard rock band, and moving into the '80s, much more AOR. So there you have it. I mean, it's a lot of good albums though. I mean, this band, to me, I know that when you look in the history of this band, you have to include the Airplane years. I know the Airplane will always get much more acclaim because of how groundbreaking they were for the '60s psychedelic, San Francisco rock scene. But I've always felt that Jefferson Starship were vastly underrated, have a lot of great songs, a lot of really strong albums. To me, it's kind of, in a weird way, and I'm not comparing the bands at all, but it's kind of like, the Beatles were so great and so dominant, so groundbreaking in the '60s. They broke up, all the members did other things, and Paul started up Wings, who were a really big band throughout much of the '70s. But, a lot of people kind of, the Wings is almost like an afterthought in the grand scheme of things when you look at all that the Beatles did. And I understand that. I think this is kind of similar in a way. The Airplane has all the acclaim, and I think the Starship kind of is like forgotten. But I think the Jefferson Starship albums, to me anyway, I find a little bit more enjoyable. I love the Airplane, but I like Jefferson Starship better. I don't know why. I think it's just more my cup of tea. Even though I love psychedelic music and I love a lot of the Airplane stuff, but I find I enjoy these albums and listen to these albums a little bit more. Just a personal thing.
And it's got to be said too, like you mentioned, and it's a good analogy. The Beatles. People say, "Oh, I love everything the Beatles did." For me, I prefer the Beatles from like the more experimental albums, from like Revolver.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and when I say to someone, "Oh, love me do," or "Please please me," was not, my cup of tea. They're like, "Oh, you're crazy." I'm like, "No, I'm just telling you what I feel and what I like. I already know I'm crazy, but I mean, that's got nothing to do with it.
You know what you like. I mean, I know lots of people who like the early Beatles stuff, and a lot of people like me, Rubber Soul and onwards. That's the Beatles that I like. So, but I like it all. But I prefer the latter, the second half of the '60s stuff. Yeah. But
I agree with you. I think the Jefferson Starships, I think they kind of, not that they kind of get left behind, but they're not given the same amount of credit, I think, to an extent, that the Jefferson Airplane did. So I mean,
both great though. Both great.
Yeah. If you took these tracks and put them all together, you'd have a hell of a compilation.
Pretty much. So there you have it, everybody. Ranking the albums, the top 5 anyway, of the Jefferson Starship. So down in the comments, please rank these albums as you like them. It'd be cool to see how everybody else feels about the Jefferson Starship catalog. And like I said, if you've never listened to them, go check out some of these albums and come back and report back and let us know what you think. Because we both feel pretty strongly that there's lots of gems on these records. Lots of gems. Really, really good, talented band with loads of vocals. Again, 3 vocalists. I love that. So you know, what's not to love here? So anyway, thanks. Please visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the
All
damn
the
time.
damn time.
Please make sure you click that like button. Very, very important, everybody. So see that little thumb thing, click that. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so and click on that notification bell. And tune in just a couple of weeks. Armando and the rest of the Curse of the Collectors crew and myself will be back with more fun stuff that we've accumulated since the last episode. So stay tuned
It's
to
a
that.
blast.
That's
It'll be
right.
fun.
A lot of stuff, a lot of stuff.
It'll be fun.
So what we will reveal, only time will tell. So stay tuned for Armando and I and the crew on Curse of the Collectors coming up in September. And we'll see you all tomorrow night with the Hudson Valley Squares. For Armando Venditti, I am Pete Pardo. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.